up, and welcome to the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, manifestation expert, money mindset and fulfillment coach, and multiple six-figure entrepreneur. Come sit with me while I spill the real tea on what it's like to practice using intentional manifestation, demystify all of the woo-woo and confusing bullshit that comes along with creating the life of your dreams, and give you a realistic view of what it's like to be on a personal, spiritual, and professional growth journey. The goal of this podcast is to support and guide you towards manifesting all of your dreams, shed light on the things that people are too scared to talk about, and encourage you to become the person who gets to have it all, be it all, and do it all. I am so happy you are here. Let's fucking do this thing. What is up, y'all? Oh my God. If you are listening to this podcast on February 6th, 2022, I almost forgot the year, February 6th, 2022, then you are listening to this podcast episode on my 26th birthday. Woohoo! I'm so excited to be recording this podcast episode. I wanted to do something special to celebrate my birthday with all of you, and that is 26 things that I have learned in 26 years. And I'm going to try to keep this podcast at a reasonable timing because I could go into depth on all of these different lessons. And with that being said, if there's any of these lessons that really stand out to you that you would love to hear more on, that you'd love to hear my experience with, please send me a message on Instagram and let me know that you would love me to go deeper on that lesson, on that topic, so that I can create another episode, create more content for you to explain these different parts of my journey, because I've given you bits and pieces. You've heard the overall story of it, but there is so much that plays into my life and what has led me to who I am and where I am today. Just like I can imagine for all of us, that would be the case. And lots of my journey has been really ugly. And I'm going to be sharing some of the lessons that I've learned that have come through that, as well as just like major lessons that I have learned. And this is just 26 of them, the 26 that I could put together. So with that being said, we're going to dive into this. So the first lesson that I have learned in 26 years is that playing will always be important. It doesn't matter what age you are. And something with this is that I feel like there's some dumb fucking thing that happens that we get to an age and suddenly playing isn't productive, or playing is something that we should stop. We suddenly go from having recess to having break at school. And I remember during recess and during break at school that I used to make fun of the girls who were still playing horses or who were still playing house. And now I admire the fuck out of them, because play is necessary at every single stage, every single age in your life. And I'm so proud to say that age 26, I play more now than I have since I was a kid. And it's completely changed my life to be able to step into this playful role and this playful energy. So that is my first lesson. Second lesson is who you were as a kid and the things that you loved as a kid are a true expression of your soul and of your heart's desires. I can remember as a kid for myself, the number one thing that felt important to me in my life was people. I loved people, whether that was people watching, having conversations with strangers, my friends, my family. People were it for me. And somewhere along the road, that got lost, and I was supposed to try and figure out what I wanted to do. Was told that I needed to find a career path that would make sense. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the only thing that truly mattered to me was connection with people. And it took me a long time to get back to this position of recognizing that that's enough. that I didn't have to have it completely figured out of like what that meant to me, or that I didn't have to have a specific label on what it is that I was going to do or the career path that I was supposed to have, because all along my soul has been guiding me towards connection with people. So whatever it is that you felt completely lit up by as a kid is what your soul wants to guide you towards, what your heart is guiding you towards. So if there's ever moments that you're feeling confused or you're feeling as though you are unsure of what that is for yourself, take yourself back to that childlike experience, that childlike wonder of what brought you the most excitement, the most joy, the most passion as a kid, because that is the truest expression of your soul. Third lesson is that bottling up your emotions is a recipe for a shitstorm. And if you listen to the podcast, you've heard me talk a little bit about this, but essentially my entire life up until the age of 16 bottled up all of my emotions, because that's what our society kind of teaches us to do. Our society has this fucked up perception of emotion that we're supposed to hide it if it's anything less than being happy or less than being professional. I'm saying all of this shit with quotations around it because that is all relative. Everything is based off perception. But society does this really weird thing of convincing us that like our sadness, our frustration, our whatever it is not something that we should share or we should express with the world. So I did a really good job of shoving that shit down for years and years and years and years after experiencing a lot of unfortunate things in my upbringing. And at the age of 16, I reached my breaking point and I experienced suicidal thoughts and just anxiety and panic and all of the things for the first time in my life, and didn't feel as though there was an option of how to deal with these things other than ending my life. And that's what I mean by you pushing your emotions down, you bottling up your emotions is the perfect recipe for a shitstorm, because we have to release those things in order for us to create space for more inside of our bodies and for us to be able to fully experience more things and feel safe experiencing more things. So your emotions are huge for the manifestation process. They're huge for your functionality as a human being. And I could go on about this all day long. This is definitely something that I'm going to do another podcast episode on at some point. There is already a podcast episode called Feel Your Fucking Feelings. If anybody wants more of that right now, you can go check out that episode. But that is this one. So fourth lesson is that the environment that you put yourself in is everything. And there's so much truth in that saying that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Your environment will absolutely dictate how you choose to do things, how you choose to perceive things, what you think is possible for you, what you believe in. So choose an environment that supports your growth, not only a physical environment that supports that, but also a mental environment, an emotional environment, a spiritual environment, a financial environment, all of the different ways, because you may not always be able to change your physical environment. And I think about this for myself in my life of like growing up in my parents' house or being in a job that I needed to work at the time to make my bills or whatever it was. That was a physical environment that was eventually going to end, but in that moment I was a part of. But we have the power inside of ourselves to put ourselves in the position mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, that is going to support us. And a lot of the time that comes through gaining the support from being in the environment of people who have the things that you want. Fifth lesson that I've learned is that if you're uncomfortable, that's good. It means that you are growing. And this is something that I see with the personal development community and the healing community. They kind of throw a lot of shade around this whole concept of like, you should be completely healed in this area to be able to talk on it or do it or share it with other people. And that's a bunch of fucking bullshit, because we are all human beings. We will all always experience discomfort when we are growing. And the only way that you can step into greater versions of yourself is by doing it before you are ready and doing it in ways that you've never done it before. And that is always, always, always going to require you to get uncomfortable and to put yourself into that position that you haven't before. And the only way that you can learn to do it is by doing that. So fuck all of this BS perception around you have to be completely healed or you shouldn't feel uncomfortable in this situation and blah, blah, blah. All of the misconception around it. If you feel uncomfortable, good. That means you're growing. Keep going. Keep leaning into that. Know that it's okay to feel that discomfort, and that discomfort wouldn't be there if you weren't growing. So that is something that you can absolutely celebrate. Sixth lesson is that you will lose people that you never thought you would lose. And I can say this has been one of the hardest lessons that I have learned in my 26 years thus far, whether this has been somebody passing and their life actually ending, or letting go of relationships and friendships that I never thought would end. It's fucking painful. It's so fucking painful to have people who we thought were always going to be in our lives not be a part of our lives anymore. And there's been that intentionally for me in the past few years of really stepping into this version of Kat and growing in the ways that I've grown, was letting go of people who wanted me a certain way, or who didn't support the growth, who constantly brought up the past and really wanted that to be the reality. And it's okay. It's okay to let go of those people. It's really fucking painful, and that's okay too. It's part of what makes this human experience so raw and so real. And I don't know about you guys, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here for the realness of this life and everything that it has for us. Seventh lesson is to celebrate your mistakes. I fucking adore my mistakes and looking back on them, because I realize now that none of them were actually mistakes. They were actually the experiences that have led me to who I am and where I am today. And just like a few of those different things that I could consider mistakes have been dropping out of college, dating shitty guys, taking $30,000 out to go to coding school, and never coding a day in my life since. Moving across state lines to help someone I know open a restaurant without knowing how much they were going to pay me. Like, so many different things that I could look back on in my life and be like, oh God, that's such a fucking mistake that I did that. But they're not. Because without these experiences, without me putting myself in the position of doing it, I wouldn't have had these learning experiences. I wouldn't have grown in the ways that I've grown without giving myself that permission to go into it blindly sometimes, and not know what it was going to bring, but trust that it was going to guide me to where I was supposed to be inevitably. I wasn't supposed to code. I wasn't supposed to be a computer developer. I wasn't supposed to be in the restaurant and beverage industry for the rest of my life. But without taking those risks and without making those mistakes and having those failures, I wouldn't be recording this podcast for all of you today. I wouldn't be living this dream life in New York City. Every single one of those experiences have led me to who I am and where I am today. So be grateful for your mistakes. They are the building blocks. They are the stepping stones. They are the things that are bringing you so much closer to everything that you desire. And this is one of the biggest things that I see with the women that I work with. They're scared of failing. And it's like, your failures are the things that are guiding the ship. They're the thing that are helping you pave the path and get closer to what you want. If you weren't fucking up, you would have no clue what direction you want to go in and what you don't. You wouldn't know. So be grateful for those mistakes. Be grateful for those failures. 8th lesson is that opening yourself up to fully feeling is one of the bravest things that you will ever do. Feeling loved, like fully loved with no conditions, is one of the most intoxicating feelings in the world. Feeling gratitude, like full gratitude, where there's nothing else in the world that matters, is absolutely breathtaking. And just like all things in this world, the opposite of these experiences exist. Feeling heartbreak in its fullest capacity feels debilitating. Feeling fear to its fullest capacity feels like there's no way out. And this is the beautiful and messy part of the human experience that, in my opinion, makes life so worth living. That we have that power to feel things that fully, to experience life to its depths. And when we give ourselves permission to do that, that is the bravest fucking thing that you could ever do. 9th lesson is that you should question the fuck out of everything. And I think this one speaks for itself, but I can say and will say that right now, more so than ever before in our lives, it is important for us to question the fuck out of everything. Literally everything, especially when the big forces at play in the world are trying to tell us not to, or trying to silence the people that are. And this can start with yourself, but you can take it as big as you want, because we cannot see within ourselves what we cannot see. And we can't see within the world what we're not able to see. But when you start to question everything, you start to energetically open yourself up to seeing and understanding more. And in my opinion, a curiosity of the world, a curiosity of yourself, and the willingness to go deeper than what is considered the norm is wealth. That is how you attain so much fucking wealth. And I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about wealth in all ways. So allow yourself to go to that place. Allow yourself to question the fuck out of everything. 10th lesson is to be really fucking selfish. Becoming a selfish person is the best thing that I have ever done for myself, and the best thing that I've ever done for the people in my life. And I have a podcast episode on this as well. I don't mean selfish in the way of like, fuck you and fuck you and fuck you. And I'm sorry for how many fucks there are in this episode already. But I mean this in the way of like, you have to be selfish from the energy of self-love. You cannot give from an empty cup. And so many of us are conditioned, especially us as women, to give and give and give. And that is how our worth is determined. But it's a bunch of bullshit. So allow yourself to be selfish. Put yourself first. You are the most important person in your life, because when you win, when you truly feel like you are winning, when you feel like you are on top of the world, that is when the world wins. Because that's when you can actually show up and give. The 11th lesson that I've learned is your dreams will change, and that's okay. So I don't think I've ever talked about this before, but my life dream, literally all of my life up until the age of 22, was to be a mom, to have children, and to be a good wife to my husband. And beyond that, I didn't have a dream for myself. I didn't have a dream for my life. And that is completely okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that dream. If that is your dream, I applaud you. I think it's a beautiful dream. But at the age of 22, I had a massive existential crisis because I realized that this was something that I no longer wanted. And with that being the only thing that I ever looked forward to, and the only thing that I thought I could bring purpose to, and the only thing that brought my life purpose, I, at that point, had absolutely no clue what purpose my life still held. And it was a very dark and scary place to go to. It was a dark and scary unraveling process, an entire lifetime's worth of believing that this was my one and only dream, and coming to the position of accepting that my dream could change and that my life still held meaning. So if your dreams have changed, or if you are in the position that you are still holding on to a dream that you know doesn't resonate with you anymore, know that it's okay. It may be painful to switch that dream. It may feel as though you've just completely fucked up everything in your life, because that's how I felt. I remember this one distinct memory. Oh God, I was so fucking scared, where I was sitting with one of my lifelong friends and her friend who was visiting, and my best friend Helena, that all of you have probably heard me talk about. And we were having this conversation of like what we wanted for ourselves in our lives. And I got tears in my eyes and I felt so much anxiety in my body, because that was the first time I ever said out loud that I, my entire life, dreamt of being a mom and having children and having a family, having this happy, healthy family. And first time saying out loud that I don't think that that's what I want anymore. And it took a long time, honestly, after that to come to the position of being so okay with the fact that's not what I want for myself anymore. And who knows, that could change as well. But it was a big moment. And to be able to step into who I am now and where I am now, having the dreams that I have now, I never knew that these dreams could be available to me. So just like I said, it may be a painful process of letting old dreams go, but with shedding of old layers welcomes in new things for you. So you're safe to do it. 12th lesson is that you do not need to justify anything you say, anything you do, or who you choose to be. And other people might not understand it, but they don't need to. And my example of this is that I spent my whole life justifying why I should do something or why I shouldn't do something, why I can do something, why I can't do something, and always trying to figure out whether something was right or wrong, good or bad, positive or negative. And I learned this from my mom. I learned this from my mom, and mommy, if you're listening to this, I love you. We've had this conversation. But it really is. It's like a learned behavior of how I saw her justifying the reason she would or wouldn't do everything in her life to the people around her, almost to like get that validation. And here's the thing. You don't owe it to anyone to explain yourself. You don't even have to have a justification for yourself. Even when the world tells you that you do need a justification, you don't. This is your life, not theirs. Feel free to hit them with a plot twist whenever you wish. Having the reason of because I want to or because I don't want to is enough of an answer. The reason of yes or the reason of no. You do not have to have a justification for why you are choosing the different things that you are choosing in your life. 13th lesson is that you are not the voice in your head. And this lesson right here single-handedly changed the direction of my whole life. So prior to learning that all of my thoughts in my head are inherently neutral and I'm the one who gives them meaning, I thought that my mind was quite literally going to kill me. I followed myself down really dark and scary rabbit holes where it felt like there was absolutely no return, and where there wasn't a return without hours and hours of therapy and services that were helping me get myself to the position where I could crawl out of the rabbit hole. But this is one of the most important things to know. You are not the voices in your head. You are the observer of those different voices. And when you can train yourself to truly be the observer, not down in the trenches with them, believing that you are all of the things that enter into your noggin, then you give yourself so much power. You give yourself power to choose what is true for you and what is not true for you, as opposed to just accepting every single thing that comes into your head as truth and taking it and running with it. 14th lesson that I've learned is that old foundations have to crumble in order for us to build the life that we want for ourselves. You cannot build a new life on a shaky old foundation. And the crumbling process can feel like things are not going the way that they're supposed to in your life. But I promise you, they are. The universe does this silly little thing of shaking shit up in our lives when we won't let go of the past, when we won't let go of the things that aren't supporting us. And all of these things that honestly keep us small. And if you want the life that you dream about having, you have to be willing to let go and surrender your control to welcoming in the process of creating the space so that you can build that foundation. Because from that position where you've actually allowed the crumbling to happen and creating of the space, then you're able to fully build up a foundation that will support the life that you want to build on top of that. And if you try to spiritually bypass this position of allowing the crumbling process of all of the old shit and the old life because you don't want to do it and it feels uncomfortable, then you will start to build on top of that shaky foundation and shit will come crashing and burning anyways. So allow yourself that opportunity to, when things are not supporting you anymore, when you are unhappy with things, to allow them to crumble, to allow them to move to the fucking side. This is the process that I went through in my 22nd year and my 23rd year of life, where it was just like a fuck ton of upheaval. It was a fuck ton of crumbling and letting all of that shit go. So it takes time. And like I've been saying in almost all of these lessons, it can be super fucking painful, but it's okay, because that is how you create the space to build a new foundation that is going to be able to support the life that you're wanting to create for yourself. 15th lesson that I've learned is that fucked up shit is inevitable in our lives. And we may not have control over that, but we do have the power to choose how we want to respond to it. And I have a long list of fucked up shit that has happened in my first 26 years of life. And I used to make myself the victim to all of it. But by being the victim, it didn't give me any power. So I chose to respond differently to those experiences. And I feel like I should do a full episode on this to explain some of the really fucked up things that have happened in my life, just as a trigger warning to the trigger warning. That episode is going to be full of trigger warnings. It's going to be full of things that I have in the past preferred to keep hidden in a dark closet, but have now been allowing myself to bring to the light because I know so many other people go through really fucked up experiences as well. So if you're interested in that, I'm sure it's the inevitable of the podcast that I absolutely will share those fucked up experiences that have happened. But like I said, comes with a trigger warning. And if it's something that you do want to hear, send me a message on Instagram. I would love to know if that is something that you're interested in hearing about. The things that I've gone through that have been incredibly challenging, and not despite them happening, but because of them happening, have been able to step into this position that I'm now who I am and living the life that I'm living. Which plays into the 16th lesson, which is that there's always going to be light after the darkness. Everything in our lives has its opposite. And I have learned that in the moments that it feels like I'm never going to see the light again, and I've accepted that I'm never going to see the light again, that is typically when the tides start to shift. There's something to be said about fully accepting and surrendering to what you're experiencing in your life. And a lot of the time people would argue that this is giving up, but I don't see it that way. I think that the things that we experience in our lives have to reach their full capacity in order for us to go the opposite direction with them. And I had to reach my own personal dark night of the soul to be led back towards the light. But the light always exists. Trust that the light will always be there. The 17th lesson that I've learned in my 26 years is that your appearance is not your worth. And this has honestly been one of the hardest lessons that I've learned and am continuing to learn, because I will be 110% honest, there are still challenging times that I have with my body. This is, as far back as I can trace it, the deepest, darkest conditioning and trauma that I have in my life. I never, up until doing the inner work and really diving into this area of my life, felt safe inside of my body. And I could never accept the way that I looked because I didn't look anything like the girls my age. I was extremely overweight. I looked more masculine than I did feminine. I was told over and over and over again and bullied so fucking hard for not being attractive and for being fat. And this led to multiple eating disorders that I hid from everybody in my life. This led to really fucked up relationships with food and with exercise and with men and with intimacy and with sex. This led to a lot of heartache. But slowly and surely, I'm continuing to learn that my body does not reflect my worth, but it is instead something that gets to guide me through this human experience and support me in ways that I wouldn't otherwise be able to be supported. And just like I said at the beginning of this episode, we are all works in progress. This is something that is a work in progress for me. There are days that I feel like I am on top of the fucking world and I can look myself in the mirror and be like, damn, bitch, you are so hot. And there are days in the mirror that I want to cry. And that's complete honesty, complete vulnerability here on the No Bullshit Manifestation Show. So that is something that I just want to put out there and be super honest and transparent with, because the people that we look up to, they experience their own insecurities as well. And this is something that I slowly but surely am continuing to heal. And these last few lessons that I've learned, they are more so reflecting these years of my life. So 17, 18, 19 onwards, when I was going through and thinking about all of this, are lessons that really pertain to those years of my life. So as you're listening to them, you can kind of get an idea of where I was at mentally, emotionally, physically, etc., within all of these different ones. So lesson 18 is that you're not always going to get what you want, but you're always going to get what you need. And a lot of the time, the things that we think we want aren't actually the things that are going to take us down the path that we need to walk in order to live that our souls want us to live. And an example of this in my life is that when I was 18 years old, 17, 18, right as I was a senior in high school, I was accepted into Regent's University, London. And I was so fucking excited to go to Regent's University, London. I got a 95% scholarship, and because it was in London and I lived in the US, I would have to take out a pretty decent private loan in order to cover the remainder of that tuition. And at the time, my parents were not willing to sign on a private loan because of interest rates and because of their financial trauma and all of the different things that they had experienced financially growing up. So this was devastating to me. And I wanted to do everything I possibly could to try to get to the position where I could make the money that I wouldn't have to take out that loan, because I had to have a co-signer on it being that age. So this led me to working at a coffee shop in my hometown which ultimately led me to a friend group that I wouldn't have otherwise found. And that friend group led me to my first serious relationship. And that first serious relationship and heartbreak led me to moving to Denver. And moving to Denver led me to a friendship that then led me to moving up to Boise, Idaho, and opening a restaurant up there. And the crumbling of my life up in Boise led to me finding manifestation, law of attraction, tapping into my spirituality, learning about myself, healing my trauma, not running away from myself for the first time in my life. And through that experience, it's led me here. It's led me to starting and scaling the business of my dreams, being able to help over 150 women in the past 2 years and make more money than I've ever thought was possible, do things that I literally had no clue I could do, live a life that I genuinely didn't know was possible for me ever, let alone at age 26. So while I did not get what I wanted at age 18, I now know that I got what I needed. And oftentimes the things that happen in our lives don't make sense when they're happening, but looking back, they're always going to make sense. So you may not always get what you want, but you're going to receive something so much fucking greater. And that's something that I love to say to all of the women that I work with, is that you either get what you want or something greater. It may not feel like it in the moment. It may feel like you are losing something, and that how are you ever going to receive something greater than what you just had? But you either get what you want or something greater. The 19th lesson that I've learned is that we have the power to disguise our traumas and our past limited conditioning as quote unquote good things and play them out in really loud and destructive ways. So before becoming aware of my conditioning and my traumas, I let them run the show. I let them dictate my behaviors. It almost felt like I didn't have a choice. It was like just something I had to do. It was who I was. And one example of this as a manifestation in my life, as trauma manifesting in my life, was the trauma that I had experienced from my daddy issues. And I used my daddy issues as a way to see as many men as I possibly could, to sleep with as many men as I possibly could, to essentially like manipulate the fuck out of as many men as I possibly could to feel power over them. And at the time in my life, I saw this as something that I could feel really empowered by and something that was powerful for me because it was the first time in my life that I felt a position of power over men. And in reality, looking at it now, I recognize that I hurt a fuck ton of men by allowing this conditioning and this trauma to run the show. And I don't regret anything in my life. Like I've said throughout all of these different lessons, I know that every single thing happens for a reason and that these experiences brought me closer to healing my daddy issues. But it's still super interesting to look at and look back on and recognize that when we are unaware of it, that we absolutely do use our traumas and we do use our harmful conditioning as things to try and benefit us, as ways to manipulate people, as ways to get what we want, to stay safe. And it doesn't have to be that way. So that is my 19th lesson. 20th lesson that I have learned is that everything in our lives is so fucking temporary. And in all 26 years of my life, I think that this has to be one of the top 3 lessons that I've learned, that everything's so fucking temporary. The good things, the bad things, the ugly things, nothing lasts forever. And the acceptance of this can set you free. 21st lesson is that it's fun and also scary to push your limits. And if you know me, I don't like the rules. I have pushed the fuck out of my limits always throughout my life. I've pushed my limits in ways that were dangerous. I've partied to the point of knowing that I probably shouldn't have woken up the next day, of woken up in places that I have no clue how I got there, of looking outside and seeing my car and recognizing that I was the person who got myself to the place that I was at, even though I had absolutely no memory of it. And while those things kind of felt fun in the moment, that was pushing myself to the limit in a way that was really, really fucking scary. But this also can be applied in other ways. You can push your limits in a way that is fun and scary, that is going to serve you. And I've done this in the way that has allowed me to completely transform my life, to make more money than I ever knew was possible, to have true full freedom at the age of 26. And one of the things that I used to talk about all the time with one of my coaches is that I believe that it's part of my soul's purpose here on planet Earth to essentially like throw myself in the deep end and see if I can swim. And whether in my life I've done this in a way that is productive or not, I've always wanted to push the limits. And we all have a choice of which way we're going to push ourselves with these limits. And one path is going to lead you closer to everything that you want in life, and the other path is going to take you further and further away from it. But either way, pushing your limits is going to feel fun and it's going to feel super fucking scary. So the choice is yours, and whatever way you choose to take yourself out of those limits, it's going to feel super fucking uncomfortable. 22nd lesson is that you should always ask for help. Our society has done this really fucked up thing of trying to convince us that we should do everything on our own. And after years and years and years of fighting to try and figure things out on my own, I say fuck that. Ask for help. Ask to be supported. Ask for what you need. The answer is always going to be no if you aren't asking for it. So ask. Ask for support. You're not supposed to do all of these different things in your life alone. 23rd lesson is that you have the power to change your life in every single moment. And I don't feel like I really need to elaborate on this one because all of you listening to the podcast know that it's possible. If I can do it, you can do it too. And all you have to do is choose this for yourself. It is truly that simple, and you are that powerful. Choose for yourself that you want to change your life and take the action to align with it. 24th lesson is that you are the only person that is going to live for you. So stop living for other people. My life has changed in the most beautiful and indescribable ways when I decided to put myself first. And if you haven't put yourself first yet in your life, I encourage you to look at where in your life you are still living for other people and where you are living a life that isn't yours just to appease these other people. And then take your power back, because this is your one and only life. And there's not enough time to pretend like there is time to give it away to what is not setting your soul on fire and what is not authentic to you. 25th lesson is to not look back with anger. Cue Oasis. Don't look back in anger. I heard you say. But for real, like, there's literally no point looking back at your life with regret or with anger for what you have done. Just like I've spilled the fucking tea on myself in this episode, I've said things inside of this episode that I have only ever said to my therapist, or I've only ever said to coaches in the past. There's no reason to look back on those things with anger. There's no reason to look back on those things with regret. There's no reason that you should have to hide those things at the back of your dark, dark closet, because every single thing that we do in our lives is leading us closer to who it is that we're supposed to be and the lives that we're supposed to live. Even and especially the fucked up things. Those are the things that could help you make an impact on the world. They could be the things that are the inspiration for your best-selling book. They could be the things that help you make your millions. Everything in your life is playing out perfectly, even and especially when it doesn't feel like that. Even and especially when you want to look back and beat up on yourself or feel grossed out by yourself or shame yourself or whatever it is. Those things happen for a reason. Those things are important. You do not need to hold this weight over your head for the fact that they have happened. So don't look back in anger. They're okay. And my 26th and final lesson for this episode is the better it gets, the better it gets. I hated that shit that people would always say about you peak in high school. Like, fuck that. I'm not here for that. We are creating our realities. So we have the power to choose that the better it gets in our lives, the better it gets. And I know for myself that this is still just the beginning. There's so much more abundance. There's so much more goodness for me to have. And that this is just the starting point. I've created my dream life. I literally have my dream life. But this is where I get to learn how to dream bigger. This is where I get to trust that because things are this good, they get to keep getting better and better and better. And baby, you better believe I am peaking on the last day of my motherfucking life. So with all of that being said, thank you if you made it to this point through all 26 lessons. Those are my 26 lessons thus far in life. Those are just 26 of the lessons. God damn, there has been endless lessons thus far in life. But I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank you for coming with me on this journey. This journey has been really fucking scary, especially as I'm stepping into this 26th year of my life. That is something that I'm choosing. I'm choosing to expand. I'm choosing to push my limits in a way that is scary, that is going to benefit not only me, but benefit all of you. And that comes with me being more vulnerable than I've ever been. That comes with me sharing the shit that I have kept tucked away. That comes with me being an even greater version of myself. And I couldn't do it without all of your support. I wouldn't be here without all of your support. So thank you so fucking much for being here. Thank you for being a part of my journey for the 25th year of my life. And I promise you things are only going to continue to get more and more abundant from this point moving forward, more and more spicy from this point moving forward. Because just like I said, this is truly just the beginning for me and for us and for all of the different things that I have in store for all of us. So with that being said, thank you. I'm going to go have a really fucking awesome birthday. And I love all of you. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please share it. Please post it on your Instagram. Please do that for me as my birthday gift from all of you. Share this podcast. Share this message. Share the words that I speak, because that is how in my 26th year of life, I'm going to continue to be able to expand and give more to all of you. So if you would do that for me, I'd be so grateful. But if not, it's okay. Thank you for listening. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I'll talk to you on the next episode. Oh my gosh. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I'm so grateful to have these no bullshit talks with you. If you enjoyed today's episode or the podcast as a whole, please spread the love by leaving me a review on iTunes or sharing the podcast with others. This is how I will be able to spread more of these good vibes and be able to make more of an impact on the lives of others. And if you're not already part of all of the goodness and community that I have to offer, check out the show notes. I have links to the different ways that I can support you on your manifestation journey and help you live a life full of more money, fulfillment, and freedom. But that is all for now. So big love and hugs, and I will chat with you soon, babe.